First of all, welcome everybody. My name's Paul Dargusch. I'm the Director of Education at the International Energy Centre. Today's webinar will go for about 20 to 30 minutes. I'll aim to finish the presentation in 15 or 20 minutes and then we can have some questions. The point of today's presentation is to run through the Masters of Energy Studies program that the International Energy Centre offers, and to explain what the International Energy Centre is and how that Masters of Energy Studies program runs. So we can see everyone should be able to see the PowerPoint presentation. Please just type some text in if you need any help with that. Thank you, everybody. I can see a few people nodding in the affirmative. And just as I move through that now too, the slides should be changing. So the International Energy Centre, just to start off, is a joint initiative between three of Australia's leading universities, the University of Queensland, the University of Newcastle. For those who don't know, the University of Newcastle is in a city called Newcastle, just north of Sydney, and the University of Western Australia, located in Perth in Western Australia. We're also very lucky to have as a founding member one of the world's largest mining companies, a company called Glencore Xstrata. So these organisations are all members of the International Energy Centre, and the International Energy Centre was established to have impact and to create leadership, if you like, around this big global challenge that we have, this big, what we often refer to as a big wicked challenge of how to solve the world's energy needs and at the same time address these very substantial problems of things like climate change and increasing population, food and water security, etc. One of the important first points to note is that the reason that these three universities got together is that they each have some strengths in different areas of that problem. Interestingly, the three universities are also located in the three energy hubs around Australia. So Queensland is renowned, if you like, as a place for coal exports from Australia. We also have some very big coal seam gas to LNG developments in Gladstone, just north of Brisbane. Newcastle is a centre for coal exports as well. And Western Australia is a big hub for LNG as well as other mining products like iron ore. So these three universities have a traditional set of expertise in energy-related aspects. So the International Energy Centre, its core educational offering is a Masters of Energy Studies. We acknowledge we've sort of developed this Masters of Energy Studies program, but the challenges that we deal with in relation to this energy dilemma, this nexus of energy, climate change and sustainability, require a transdisciplinary approach. They require engineering expertise, legal expertise, expertise in economics, expertise in business management and finance, how we can judge and appraise different types of projects. And also too so the three universities come together to offer that Masters of Energy Studies program. On this side, we've got a summary of how the program is unique, and it is unique in a number of different ways. Firstly, it's co-taught between those three universities. It's co-delivered. What that means is that students do 1 week intensives as part of the degree program at each of the three universities. And I'll talk a little bit more about how that works in a moment. And it's co-badged. That means that when you graduate and get your degree, a Masters of Energy Studies, on your testament, on your diploma, if you like, you have you have the badging of each of the member universities. So that's a pretty unique thing. It enables expertise from each of the three universities to be captured. We're now 2014 will be the third year that we've run the Masters of Energy Studies program. Our previous two cohorts are a very interesting mix of professionals, both domestic, Australian citizens and professionals, and some international attendees as well. So we've got people who work for gas companies, people who work for power generators, people who work for all levels of government in Australia, so local, state and federal government levels. We've got consultants, people who are engineering consultants, plus people who are lawyers and who work in carbon management advisory firms. We've got a journalist. We've got international students from places like Brazil, Indonesia, Nepal, Kenya. And we've got people who've got professional backgrounds right around the world in places like Nigeria and elsewhere as well. So we have a mix of international and domestic students, and I think that's a really highlight to our educational offering too, about how that enables people to learn about the Australian context and for Australian people to learn about the international context. So we have the students that come from a wide range of backgrounds. Our students also have a substantial amount of industry experience, typically, in different forms. As I mentioned, some come from government, some come from the private sector, and a whole variety of private sector participants as well. So the way that the Masters of Energy Studies program is delivered is a little bit different to a traditional university course. What we do is deliver our courses as intensive courses. And so students do these intensive courses at locations around the country at each of the partner universities. So in general, students attend 3 intensive blocks in Brisbane at the University of Queensland, 3 intensive blocks in Newcastle at the University of Newcastle, and 2 blocks in Perth at the University of Western Australia. I'll talk in a moment a little bit about how the costs of that are managed, etc. But this is a really, I think, a highlight to the program. So it not only enables us to capture expertise at the 3 universities, but it also enables us to see some very interesting things that only exist in each of those regions. So students, for example, in Brisbane get to see one of the Southern Hemisphere's anyway, largest photovoltaic PV solar power facilities. They also get to see a hydroelectric dam. They get to see different aspects of agriculture and carbon and biomass production. In Western Australia, our students get to see wave energy. They get to see a desalination plant. They've looked at biofuel generation from an oil mallee plant. And at the University of Newcastle, they get to see coal mines, coal seam methane extraction and generation from that. And on top of that, as we start the program, we have an orientation weekend in Gladstone. So Gladstone's a town around about 300 or 400 kilometres north of Brisbane, and it's one of Australia's main energy hubs. So Gladstone is very interesting because we have a very large coal-fired power generation facility. We have a very large coal export facility, a very large fertiliser processing plant. We have 3 coal seam gas to LNG facilities worth between $15 and $20 billion being built. And we have an alumina refinery and an aluminium smelter there as well. We also have shale oil, a shale oil pilot plant, and a heap of other different things. So at the start of the MES program, we have a weekend in Gladstone, and students get to see all of those types of energy generation options, as well as energy intensive businesses. So one of the benefits of that structure is that we get to see things in each of these parts of Australia. The way that the program is structured is that it runs over 3 semesters, full-time equivalent. So obviously anyone studying part-time does this over 6 semesters, or equivalent to 3 years. But if you're studying full-time, you do this over 3 semesters with a study load of 4 courses per semester. So the first course we do is on energy and technology principles, and this is covering the basics of what key terms and key engineering principles are around energy. We then move on to a course on climate change science and climate policy. I'll just reading Rimmer's question here. Can you cut the time if you've started a master's already elsewhere and want to carry those over? Potentially, Rimmer, you can, but you have to go through a process where you would need to write firstly to the International Energy Centre, and then we would go through the faculty at the University of Queensland to see if they would recognise some of the material that you've already studied as eligible to count towards the Masters of Energy Studies degree. So the short answer is that yes, it's possible, but we would need to go through a process and have a look at the detail. And we're very, very happy to talk to you about that offline. If you want to make contact with us, please just email Rimmer, email Meryl, and she'll forward that on to me and I can talk to you about that. So on from that, the third course we do is on the drivers for the transition to a low carbon future. And that course deals with the typical drivers like population growth, right through to very contemporary issues like the shale gas revolution, change in geopolitics of energy. It also deals with the issue of climate science and climate policy response. I just saw Meryl's comment there, but if I could just clarify that too. Rimmer, I'd invite you to talk about that just by emailing it to us, because it very much depends on the type of qualification that you've got at the moment. The fourth course we do is on low emissions technologies and supply systems. Here we look at all of the conventional generation technologies, but we also then start to look at the major renewable low emissions technologies type generation systems. So, of course, solar PV, solar thermal. We have an emphasis on storage systems as well. We look at different types of grid technologies. We look at geothermal power. We look at nuclear power. We look at wind power. We look at various swarms of hydropower, run-of-the-river hydropower, as well as tidal and the wave energy as well. The next course is on economics and finance of carbon management. We start to look there at ways that we can compare and appraise investment projects, and we look at some of the bigger global drivers, and indeed, how do we compare the sort of co-benefits of projects or the intangible economic values of projects. Then we have ENGY 7004, which is delivered by one of our senior colleagues, Professor John Burgess, who was a former senior executive with BHP, and he looks at, in a very challenging course, how we can incorporate risk assessment into the evaluation of projects. So at that point, students will have done 6 courses and they can move into 2 majors, one major in low carbon solutions and the other one in carbon management. The carbon management major looks at, first of all, mitigation responses, and secondly, as a second course in that major, applied carbon methods. The other major low carbon solutions looks at different types of power generation technology, particularly hybrid type technologies, and looks at energy efficiency opportunities as well. For the 3rd semester of the program, students get to do a professional project. And that's a very exciting opportunity where students get to potentially partner with a company or an organisation, a government organisation, and work on a real project. And that project can be quite applied in nature, and it can also be a strong research project, a classical academic style project. So students over that first year of study can develop up the ideas, and the International Energy Centre has a well-resourced capability to assist students to design and synthesise that project. Just on a few points of logistics, as we say, we have these 5-day intensive blocks. So included in the fees that students pay for the courses, the courses in the program, the accommodation during the 5-day intensive blocks is covered. All of the cost of the field trips during the 5-day intensive blocks are covered. The course materials for each course are obviously covered. And what we aim to do each week is, in each week of those intensive courses, is that we have one what we call industry dinner, where we invite a senior person from industry to come and speak to students. So this is a sit-down dinner that we normally have in some sort of function venue or restaurant. And we've had people like the CEO of Xstrata Coal, Glencore Xstrata Coal. We've had senior climate scientists, one very senior NGO representative in Australia. We've had some leading academics from a whole different set of areas, Australia and internationally. We've had senior executives from Shell and many other types of industry professionals. So this is an opportunity where students get to interact with that speaker and hear about some very interesting topics in an enjoyable way that allows us to all network. Normally in each week too, we have another night which we call an industry networking event, where we'll typically invite anywhere from 3 to 7 or 8 people from industry who are not necessarily at the CEO level, but they're at sort of middle to senior management type level, and from big and small companies and from different levels of government. And that's a sort of a drinks session where we normally get one of the students to present some material, either about the work that they've done for the course or something that's relevant from their own professional activities. And we get one of the industry representatives to do a similar type of talk. And the purpose of that evening is to network and get to know lots of people in industry. We have as well too now a scholarship scheme, and that's the Glencore Xstrata Energy Leader Scholarship. So the application deadline for international students on those scholarships is closed a couple of months ago actually, but the deadline for domestic students is still open, and they close on 15th of November. You can see there the web link to find out more about those. And if any of you are domestic students interested, I certainly strongly recommend that you investigate that scholarship. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact Meryl or myself. Now, I just noticed Meryl's typing. But what I might do now, just for the last 10 minutes or so, is to invite some questions. First in, best dressed. I'll wait till if you'd like to type the question in, I'll wait till we see it, and we'll go through those questions. So, Rimmer's asked there, does fee help cover this course? Now, and Meryl's just noted there that the deadlines for international scholarships have closed, but other scholarships might still be available. So that's a good point too, Meryl. So just if for other international students, there's a range of other types of international scholarships that are available, and certainly welcome everybody to investigate those. But if you've got any questions, you can certainly email Meryl, and we would do our best to assist. So Meryl's kindly answered Rimmer's question there that yes, fee help will be available for this course. So I hope that helps, Rimmer. So Meryl's kindly clarified there too that AusAid scholarships will be available to take this course for the 2015 intake. Unfortunately, not for the 2014 intake, given the AusAid cycle, but definitely available next year for the 2015 intake. You could apply for the AusAid scholarship in 2014 to start and enrol in the program in 2015. Any other questions? That's a very good question, Francis, and got 5 minutes to answer that. I think I probably need a year to answer that. So, look, there's many complex issues in the energy space. I mean, one very interesting issue is the decreasing cost of distributed PV in particular, and potentially the role that small scale storage has in that. We've got another very big factor in international gas, coal, and other oil prices, and that is this sort of boom in unconventional gas supply from the US, and how quickly the US will access export markets with that, and how that will impact on gas prices in particular around the rest of the world. And of course, gas, oil, and coal are all linked in one way or another. So we sort of have two various forces chasing each other. We've got declining costs of renewables. We've got potentially declining costs in the long run of some of these fossil fuel sources as well. And it's a very interesting question to think, well, how do businesses react in that context? I think good business thinking needs to incorporate a longer term prerogative. Whether businesses do that or not, I think it's an interesting question to reflect on. And perhaps traditionally, I think many businesses have had to have a pretty short-term focus. We're dealing with some pretty complex issues and some big major forces coming together that I think the long and the short of that is that we're going to have some pretty substantial changes happening in the energy sector around the world in the not too distant future. Always the future. So that might be apt on that one. But a very good question, Francis, and one I'd like to discuss more in due course. I just see Pratik is typing there. We might take one or two more questions, and regrettably I have to go in a few minutes too. So Pratik asks, as this course is delivered in intensive study blocks, how much faculty peer group interaction can we have during the rest of the period? Excellent question, Pratik. So if you're a full-time student, you would do the intensive courses, and the part-time students will do those courses with you, combined to do those together. But obviously, you know, as a full-time student, you would do 4 one-week intensive courses during the semester, and a semester runs for 13 weeks plus the examination period. So what we do is a number of things. First of all, we have support staff in the International Energy Centre, including an education manager and staff like Merrill, who are available to, and their job is to interact with students and maintain a level of contact during the non-intensive times. We have a tutorial system as well. The tutorial system currently, for each course, we have tutorials every 2 weeks for a 6-week period after the intensive course. So these tutorials are run at night and online. We currently have a resident tutor as well who handles those tutorials and is available at any time for the students to interact. We've found to date that our full-time cohort are a close cohort that interact a lot, and there is that high amount of peer group interaction. For the first 6 courses as well, a core part of the assessment for those 6 courses is joint group projects for about 40% of the assessment for each course on case study type analysis. So from a peer group interaction perspective, our experience over the last 2 years has been that both the part-time and the full-time cohort have a lot of opportunities for peer group interaction, and there's a number of faculty that are about that make themselves available if students have any questions or need any assistance. So I hope that helps with it. I see a couple more questions coming in. So Rimmer asked how many people at any one time are in the course. So in our 2012 intake, we had 18 students, and we had the same number, 1 or 2 more in the 2013 intake. Our preference is to not exceed 30, and probably our optimum numbers are somewhere between 20 and 30. I hope that helps. Okay, are there any other questions? If not, I might close the session